Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. The 2026 NBA season tipped off yesterday, obviously with the heavyweight matchup between the defending champs OKC taking on that brutally physical Houston Rockets squad. And this game was far from disappointing, and both teams came in with absolutely something to prove. OKC obviously looking to defend their crown and show out on their ring ceremony night, and Houston stepping into this season as one of the league's most hyped squads, obviously with the KD addition and ton others. And there's a lot that we learned from this matchup just last night, but just what a treat to get on opening night. We know that these are two supercharged, high motor basketball teams, and the season series and a possible playoff series will be absolute cinema between these two teams. So let's get right into it. So obviously with these two teams, this will probably be a potential playoff review. I think for Houston, I think yesterday was more just trying to set a theme that they have officially arrived in this league, especially with all the drastic moves that they've made to transform their roster and their ability to contend. But I think it was also a night for Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun to really show off the major off seasons that they were expected to have. But overall, we knew that this game was going to be an absolute dogfight, which it undoubtedly ended up being. And so just for the flow of the game, this game was never really fully controlled by either team, but certainly Houston did have an absolutely strong hold over the first 2.5 quarters of the game, as OKC did really struggle to get both SGA going and their off-ball play finishing going as well. And for Houston, I have to give heavy props to Amen Thompson, just for his ability to disengage SGA in especially that first half. And from yesterday, I've just heard many people just knocking Amen for that opening night performance. But defensively, he just gave a glimpse why I think he will be a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate just this year. And just the value of the elite defensive coverage against that SGA pick and roll. Really the only valuable action that OKC could consistently run in the half court. And his ability to just provide that extensive, staunching level of back pressure athleticism, that is what gave SGA so much hesitancy when it got to when he got downhill, despite the lack of vertical big man rim protection that the Rockets have, and just really forced SGA into these really tough bailout reads that fully stalled out any advantages OKC could create in the first half. And what makes him particularly special for an SGA assignment is also the discipline, not biting on ball fakes and direction fakes, but also when he does bite on those, this is the best raw athlete in the NBA, someone who can launch direction changes at obscene rates, and his all-time elite perimeter space coverage tools just set the scene for what was really a rough first half from SGA. And then also for Houston, when you can throw Tari Eason out there as well, another high motor, high acceleration athlete who can just hassle even more with the explosive player tracking, it just makes Houston particularly a key matchup for OKC with their ability to make SGA uncomfortable. But for the first 48 minutes, the big story obviously was Alperen Sengun. Now, obviously, he certainly worked on that jumper, and that's pretty clear. He came in opening night shooting 5 for 8 on threes, some of the most confident pull-up, catch-and-shoot threes that you'll see from a big man in the league, and a career-high night in threes. He's never made more than 3 in a game in his entire career, and last year he just shot 23% from 3 last year. But last night, though, this guy just showed the world just how aggressive and imposing of an offensive talent he can be. And obviously with the instrumental value of that 3, especially last night, and especially in those weird lineups where they were running him in lineups where he had Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Josh Okogie all next to him, if he can actually unlock a consistent 35 to 36% three-point shot just this season, that boost in offensive spacing along with the changes, bringing in KD and empowering Reed Shepherd in that starting unit possibly, that will give Houston the requisite firepower to space teams out and fully punish teams with their advantageous athleticism and physicality, which they do have. Just the spacing will unlock that even more. The post-game as well, Sengun is one of the best at simply distributing his weight, protecting the ball, and providing that sneaky change of direction with those nasty spins and seals out of the post. And though I thought OKC's game plan was pretty excellent and similar to what worked against offensive forwards like Triple J and Julius Randle in the playoffs last year, Sengun handled that ultra-aggressive coverage really, really well, and it comes from his actual passing abilities. Sengun, like last night, he was making all the right reads, and sometimes just the overall skill level surrounding him, that does diminish his actual creation quality, but the physically created passing windows from Şengün is something absolutely special. And he's passing not just out of the post and on those top of the key catches, but also on those hard ball drives. Like Houston last night, they were no doubt heavily relying on his perimeter ball handling, and they will probably this entire season. But Şengün's actual spatial awareness, even in movement, is just so amazing for his size and for his scoring diet. And though I think he still has a ton to work on as an impact talent, he is just 23 years old and already has the aggression ticked off the charts. But moving on on OKC's point, their actual rotation pieces, I think, were a major part in this win. And they're just the actual rotation players, they're just a notch more playable on both ends in comparison to what Houston have. And we're talking about some of the most perfectly fluid role players in the NBA today. Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Big Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Luguentz Dort. And then also you got those powerful minutes as well from AJ Mitchell, which might be a common theme this season. And that's where he gave you 16 points and a super critical ball handling array of possessions off the bench too. But in comparison to the consistent offensive impact that Houston get from guys like Tari Eason, Josh Okogie, the size limitations that Reed Shepherd presents, which he did present extremely last night, the speed and stamina limitations that we saw from Steven Adams, the lack of fast-paced ball movement from Jabari Smith. It's just a significant gap so far between what both teams have. And though the raw talent gap isn't huge, it's more about the playability in the variety of lineups for OKC's surrounding foundation that makes them so absolutely special and what I think actually won them last night's game. We saw what Cason Wallace brought, just changing the landscape of the game in the third quarter defensively. I mean, we're talking about an all defense caliber point of attack guy, exceptional hand-eye coordination, and elite reactive speed, taking advantage of the weak ball handling and the decision-making from Houston's roster. And then also him providing the additional shot making, the driving athleticism, the smart, basic decision-making to extend offense, all that extra stuff that he brings, that just gave him the extra boost in impact in yesterday's impact. And it's also why I have this guy as a top 100 player in the league. And then also, you move to a guy like Alex Caruso as well down the stretch of that game. Just the reliability of someone like him and his post defense, the denial of positioning and the clean catches that he brings with that lower center of gravity against Alperen Şengün. It's pretty comical at this point what OKC can offer at the point of attack. And this doesn't even include yet the absolute ferocity and the full game harassment of Kevin Durant from Lou Dort, just denying him any comfort and exposing his biggest weakness, which is the physicality against ball pressure piece. And that's where this game really showed similar trends to last year's final series for OKC and really just their clutch winning formula in close games. And it's really that fact that they stay competitive enough throughout games, especially in that first half. But OKC can rack up stops in significant spurts and giving themselves the requisite extra possessions to win ball games. And the entire second half, including the overtimes, just saw SGA absolutely go ultra aggressive, scoring 30 points between that span. Just incredibly heroic bailout scoring prowess. And though I don't really think their clutch offensive system is all that predicated to deal with these more refined and more polished and cohesive defenses. But SGA was absolutely remarkable towards the end of last night. And I do think the absence of Amen Thompson for much of that second half, that did certainly give SGA that comfort to hunt the matchups that he really liked, particularly creating advantages and buckets against Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, and Alperen Şengün. But SGA is just that caliber of an intermediate shot maker. And some of the degree of difficulty on those clutch go-ahead buckets was just absolutely insane. We're talking about also just the speed of his release and the composure and the confidence to just go into those looks, those tough pull-up looks. He just has perfected his craft. And the ultimate nod has to be given to him for this game. I mean, scoring 30 points in any second half is absolutely insane, especially in a tough dogfight matchup like this. And also just with the better conditioning from OKC's side as well, in terms of just their ability to win this clutch game. Just their more fluid offensive system in comparison to Houston as well, along with the megastar advantage of having SGA on your roster. That is what allowed them to steal this game down the stretch. But for Houston, this game did emphasize a ton to be optimistic about. Alperen Şengün's ceiling is real, and his physical imposition, especially when given that cushion seated next to Steven Adams, This is a matchup where he could go at Chet Holmgren one-on-one instead of having to worry about Holmgren providing that patented backline help. That gave him the strength advantage to assert himself and get fully comfortable reading the game. And as far as KD's debut goes, this was relatively decent as a matchup for him. Obviously, it is tough for him to go against this OKC squad, but the actual mid-range shot making is just on another level of polish at this point in his career. And ultimately, if Houston can implement more complex action to even just attempt to get him more clean catches and any degree of a runway to get to those clean pull-up jumpers even more so, that is when they can probably unlock more of that confidence for him. But he is 37 years old, and so much of the regular season offense had burned and won't be on him and will ultimately be on Alperen Şengün and what they will be able to get from Amen Thompson, who did have good stretches attacking with his knifing frame and bolting speed last night, despite going 0 for 7 from 3. Look, I do also think Amen clearly improved with his shot touch in the floater range for sure, and we saw that in the first half, but the offensive burden for KD will not be that large in the regular season. He will be more used as that juiced up, spot up type of player, providing that insane gravity that he usually does. For OKC though, great win protecting home court without J-Dub in the lineup, but you also just got to admire these role players and the amount of margin that they give you. And with Houston, a big story is their ability to dominate the margins, but this OKC squad does it with much more conditioning and a much more balanced set of skill across their lineup. But from this game, I just think OKC have a ton to be optimistic about, especially Holmgren's aggression as that zone beater, which was a major comfort factor early on in this game. And his mobility advantages against that Houston frontline paired with the boost in the confident aggressiveness, that will give OKC just another leg up in this potential matchup. Overall though, a great game from both teams and definitely a matchup to keep in mind for the future and what may be a key playoff matchup. And so that's my read on the opening night matchup. Just a game that I felt both squads walked away with a ton to be confident about, but also a ton that each team could look towards as potential glaring weaknesses to address. Like OKC's over-reliance on SGA and their fluctuating skill. And then Houston, obviously, with the ball handling weakness paired with their stagnant and overly basic offensive structure at this point in time. But if it's not already clear, we're certainly in for something special this season. And so I thank you guys for tuning in. And make sure you guys are following at Casual NBA Fanatic on Instagram for more breakdowns and weekly analysis as the season rolls on. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode.